we'll get things started for you.
Hello, everybody. Hi, Stephen. Hi everybody. I'm Rebecca Bond from Socially Bonded, and I run a social media consultancy helping people, particularly local businesses, small enterprises, micro enterprises, to do their social media better, to feel more confident with their social media. And today we're going to be looking at how you figure out which channel you should be on by working out where your customers are on social media. So I shall bring up my screen. Okay, so right, so now hang on, suppose that. Okay, so here we go. Who are your customers? Where do they hang out on social media? That's what we will be looking at today. So I'm going to cover all the main channels. I'm focusing on the top 5. It has been the top 4, just Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram. But Pinterest is seeing something of a resurgence. So we will be looking at that one as well. We're going to talk about who uses them, looking at the demographics of each channel, because that's one of the primary ways that you can work out who it is you are looking for and where they hang out, and then how we go about choosing the best one for you. And I will walk you through a tool on Facebook called Audience Insight. I personally find really useful for working out aspects of my audience that might otherwise be a bit of guesswork. And I will show you how I then put that together to create a pen picture of one of my customer personas. And we'll have a PDF that can be shared with you all afterwards, where you can then input all of that information as you find it in order to bring up your own kind of pen picture of who your customers are. So here are some stats for you of where social media use is in the UK at the moment. Facebook and YouTube have been up there at the top for quite a long time now. Facebook's actually coming back a little bit in terms of the percentage, but that's more to do with the fact that Instagram is really rising. So Facebook probably a couple of years ago was around the 79% mark, and YouTube was the same, but YouTube is now bigger in terms of percentage use of the UK than Facebook is. Instagram's grown over the last 2-3 years a huge amount, coming up from about 27% of the population, really similar to LinkedIn, to being pretty much 50%. And so that one's seen the biggest rise. Been quite amazed by that over the last few years. Then right down at the bottom there, you've got Snapchat and the other teenage sensation TikTok, which will be more than 8% before long, because it isn't just the preserve anymore of people under the age of 20. There are more and more people getting involved in that, and it's quite addictive. That's where we are at the moment. As you can see, there is therefore quite a big audience that's available to you across social media. So I'll go through each channel individually now. So these are some stats about Facebook itself. Globally, not just in the UK, but globally, the vast majority of people are on Facebook. It is, as I call it, the reach everyone platform. And there's almost nobody that you couldn't get on there. And it doesn't even matter which age demographic that you're looking at, they will all be on there too. It is one of the best platforms for trying to reach people who are over 55. Silver surfers. Facebook is pretty much the only platform that they are on in any real sense of numbers. And it's interesting to see that the vast majority of people do access Facebook via their mobile phones. So it's quite important when you're thinking about what posts you're putting out, that you remember people will be viewing those via their mobiles. It affects how much of the text they see at the top and things like that. So you want to make sure that everything is optimized for people seeing it via their mobile far more than by their desktop. If you were to be placing adverts on Facebook, there is a huge audience for that, 37 million people just in this country. And obviously you can be far more targeted than that. You wouldn't want to reach all 37. You would want to reach the ones out of that who are applicable to you. But it is the potential for a really big audience. And if you're a global company, then the reach is obviously far bigger. It's a really cost-effective way to reach people. You can generate leads from as little as a few pennies. So that's Facebook. And then Instagram. Now I put this one after Facebook because obviously the two of them are owned by the same company, but also they work in a very similar way. As a straight down the line split, if you are talking about products that you're selling direct to a consumer, Facebook and Instagram tend to be that route that you would want to be taking. If you are needing to network with other business leaders, if you are providing a service to other businesses, then Twitter and LinkedIn tend to work really well. But I would always recommend having Facebook in there. Instagram is a platform that you want to be on if you're very visual, or if you can make what you do to be very visual, because you need to have extremely engaging images to be able to use this platform. The feed is so full that without that and without a good hashtag strategy, you don't get so far. But there's a lot of new features rolling out on Instagram. They've obviously brought in their Snapchat style filters to the camera, which makes it very popular. And they're bringing in shopping as well. So you've got the ability to connect your Facebook shop to your Instagram platform, and then you can tag products on your images on your Instagram feed so that people can just click on that tag and go straight through to your shop. It's been quite a game changer for people who sell via Facebook, because previous to that, the only clickable link there was on Instagram was the one up at the top of your bio, but now you can click through from your images. So that's really useful if you're selling products. Obviously you can do the same on Facebook, and they've just announced that shops will be becoming bigger and bigger and bigger. So if you don't have a shop yet on Facebook, it's definitely worth setting one up to connect it with your website. Fewer than 5% of those in the Silver Surfer category are on here. It is growing, but it's not a big category in terms of demographics. If you are looking at targeting people below the age of 35, however, that is a big category. The millennials are on here in droves, and Generation Z are really keen on it too. Interestingly though, if you're only marketing locally, if you're only marketing up here in the Northeast, then actually Instagram doesn't have the same market penetration at all amongst this younger demographic. Facebook is still the platform of choice for people over the age of 18 up in the Northeast. So Twitter, this has become more of a news sharing site recently. It's a way of creating a curated news feed from the various different media outlets that you're interested in and that you want to look at. So we're talking about it being quite urban based. It does tend to have that feel to it. 71% use it to keep up with their news. And it is also, as it shows down at the bottom, it's the social demographics are of the ABC ones that are quite wealthy. So we're talking a lot of city dwellers who use this. They're on it a lot during their commutes. This is a good platform to be on if you have a lot of more serious news to share. If you're in the charity sector, the education sector, those are all sectors that are highly active on Twitter, or if you're an arts organisation as well. It's a really good platform for that, and it's a really good platform for connecting with journalists. And then LinkedIn, obviously a lot of you are on here because you've been sharing your links down the side. LinkedIn is still mainly a male platform, but that balance is changing all the time. So not that long ago, it would have been way more than 56% of it being male, way more. So it's coming much closer to being a 50-50 split. Again, a lot of them are young professionals, and the average income is pretty high. So you do have an awful lot of senior executives on here, as well as young business owners. It's a great platform to make links with other businesses, absolutely fantastic. It's a great platform to recruit through as well. And it works best if you are on there in a personal capacity. It does have the facility for having a business page, and they have brought in a whole heap of new tools that make business pages less of a little floating island off on the side and more able to communicate with the rest of LinkedIn. But it is still very much a people-to-people platform. It's a place to make connections. It's a place to find people. It's a place to build your personal relationship with another person from another business. So if you think of it like going to a networking meeting every time you log on, it's a little bit like that, and the etiquette is very similar. But as you can see at the bottom there, a huge number of business-to-business leads do come in via LinkedIn, and business-to-business blogs see half of their traffic coming from when they've posted about it on LinkedIn. And so Pinterest, that new one, it's not a new one, it's been there for quite a long time, but it's sort of making a bit of a resurgence. We're talking about this being heavily dominated by women, and it's primarily being used for creative inspiration. It's a bit like a pinboarding, which is a pinboarding site. It's like the digital equivalent of creating a scrapbook for a project that you've got going on. So when you think about Friends, how Monica created that massive scrapbook for her wedding, Pinterest would be the digital version of that. You'd have all your venues in one board, you'd have all of your dresses in one board, you'd follow people who had ideas that you liked the look of. People use it for crafting ideas. It's been really, really popular in the lockdown with people looking for interesting activities to be doing with their children. So that is still what it is mainly all about. But there are still a lot of people on there that you can reach. 10.6 million people you could reach through advertising via Pinterest, and it's not a heavily used platform by advertisers, so there is still potential there. And people who use Pinterest, they are pretty committed online buyers. A huge number, 83% of people who use Pinterest have bought something via Pinterest. And it's quite a profitable platform in terms of how well off the people are who use it. Just to quickly go back to LinkedIn for a moment, before I forget, there is an interesting thing to remember about the usage on that platform, because unlike most of the others, it is a platform where people aren't on it as much. Most of the platforms see daily engaged users at quite a high number. LinkedIn is very different from that. They have many millions of accounts, but the percentage of them that's actually active, LinkedIn reports it to be about 27, but it's believed it's probably in the teens. So there aren't very many people who are active on it very often. Most people will post a few times a month, but there aren't many people who are on it on a daily basis. So there is that to bear in mind. Articles on LinkedIn have a much longer shelf life. And if you don't get a response straight away to an article, that's not unusual either. So a quick quiz. At the top of the screen, you'll see a website to go to, menti.com, and a code to put in to say what presentation you're voting on. I'd be really interested to see from all of you, based on the information we've just looked at, which one of those 5 platforms you currently feel on a gut instinct would suit your business best at the moment. If you don't think any of those sound like they are right for you at this point, then just vote for something else. It'd be really interesting to see what your gut feel is based on the demographics, based on the usage, based on the local flavour as well. LinkedIn, interestingly, so there's quite a few of you out there that are business to business. Some of you voting in the chat box, that's fine. Not many of you thinking Instagram at the moment. Let's have a look and see who said. Okay, big feeling towards LinkedIn, so we're quite a business to business at the moment. Rosie likes Instagram, that's good. Okay, thank you very much for those votes. That gives quite an interesting picture of where people are with their businesses and what their main focus is going to be. So, in terms of time that's spent on these platforms in a lifetime, which could be quite a scary thought. This is how much time people will spend on each of these platforms in their life. Now, as you can see, LinkedIn hasn't registered on here for lifetime use, because it wouldn't amount to very many days, because they're not on there very long when they are on there. YouTube, scarily, we will lose a year and 10 months of our life to watching videos on YouTube. I'm pretty sure my children will lose more than that to YouTube, judging by how much they've been watching it in the last couple of weeks. Facebook, I've already used up my 1 year and 7 months on Facebook, so I'm going to be higher than that. And Snapchat isn't far behind. There are a lot of people spend a lot of time with their Snapchat filters. Instagram has a lower use, and Twitter just a small use, because that's another platform that, while people actually check Twitter really, really regularly, they do tend to check it for a short period of time. They read what they want to read and then they're off it. So that gives you an idea of where people are spending their time and of what period of time in someone's life you might be able to access them with your sales messages. Okay, so another quick poll, and again there's a new code at the top, so if you just either refresh for a new presentation, it will say on your screen, or just re-input that website. What do they use social media for, do you think? So this is just to type in whatever answers come to mind, and it will create a word cloud to get a sense of why you think people go on to social media. If you think about your own reasons for being on social media, if you are, that will give you quite a good idea. Thank you, Stephen, for sharing that link in the box. That will make it easier for people to click on. So yes, might be that they're connecting with their friends and family, that they're using it purely for business reasons. Perhaps they are sharing photos, they're checking out news sites. You just type into those boxes on the screen and it will pop up on here, and we can create a word cloud. Nosying, definitely. I use it for spying and stalking. Networking is a good one. We've got a family coming in there at least 3 times. Advertising, yeah. Avoiding of real work. Have you been peering into my life? And wasting time. Some excellent answers coming through here. These are all very, very relevant, definitely. I mean, as a lot of people have put, there are a lot of just wasting time and being bored, and that's why people are on there. But that in itself, if you can make your posts highly engaging, highly interesting, or very funny, then those are exactly the people that you will capture their attention, because they're looking for something to stop the boredom. So Peter Nicholson says he uses it to sell old coins. Well, selling is another reason why people are on there. Direct selling, especially with Facebook, with their marketplace, it's certainly a reason that I'm on there quite a lot. So there is the opportunity there to capture people's attention if your content is correct. So let's move on. Thank you for that word cloud. So these are the reasons that are listed as the top reasons people are on social media. Connecting with others is really the primary one, particularly connecting with friends and family. It's a great way to stay in touch and to see what people are up to. There are obviously privacy things around sharing photos, but on the whole, it is the main reason people are on there, to connect with people and to share their photos and to share news. Increasingly, social media is becoming a place to watch videos, not just thanks to YouTube, but because Facebook Watch has announced itself and launched apps for smart TVs and things like that. So they're trying to push themselves out there as a video content producer. And of course, Instagram with its IGTV is doing the same. Participation in groups, particularly on Facebook, is a big one. LinkedIn does have its groups, but there aren't many that are active. But participating in groups really creates a nice sense of community amongst people on social media. And that is increasingly becoming one of the main ways people are communicating. To find a job, particularly on LinkedIn, but again, Facebook has job listings that you can put up, and you can search for jobs on there. I found a job on there. Buying and selling, major one for me personally, and research, whether that's researching a new product that you're thinking about launching, or whether it is looking at researching your customers, which is what obviously I use it for a lot. So what do I mean when you can find your information on here? First of all, if you think of it as a massive data mine, it is full of so much really, really useful information. And this is where we're going to start talking about how you find out who your customers are. And that will obviously then tally up with who uses each channel, and you can be really specific about where you are going to be best placed. So social media platforms have so many insights that they can offer you. And if you can get to grips with those insights, then they're really powerful ways to find out who uses each platform. I find Facebook has the best because it is the most in-depth. The insights that you can simply get on your own page are really, really detailed. You can find out not just the number of followers, but where they live, what they like, how they access social media. You can also find out what gender, what age group, you can find out when they're on. So just on your own page, if you check out your page insights, there's a huge amount of information on there from Facebook. Instagram has a little bit. Again, you can see age and gender split and when they're online, but that is about it for Instagram. There's not a lot more you can see on your insights. There are some third-party tools like Social Baker and it's not Squarespace, that's a website. It's a bit like Social Square, is something along those lines. I will look that up. But that also can give you quite a good of useful month-on-month comparison data. Twitter used to have such a good audience section, but they, for some reason we don't understand, decided that they would just get rid of it. So now you can't see your follower growth over time, you can't see the age or the demographic or the city split or anything like that. They are bringing some of it back a little bit to their media studio, where they're also going to be bringing in scheduling, but it is quite a small amount of information in comparison with what they used to be. But there is still some there, and I also use a free tool called Twitonomy, which does also help me analyze the followers of an account. So that's another good one to have a look at. LinkedIn, you get very, very little information on a personal page. If you've got a company page, then that can have a little bit more information in there. That's quite good, a company page, for looking at the demographic split of who follows you, but also the demographic split of who has visited your page. So those are perhaps good reasons for having a company page, but it does double up your effort on LinkedIn. So these are the things that we can find out through the insights, and I will be talking specifically about Facebook here because this is the one which in my opinion has the best demographic information. So when I talk about demographics, I'm meaning how old someone is, what gender they decide they are, what location they live in, what mobile phone they would use to access. All these sorts of things are listed as part of the demographics. And that is really powerful information when you are working out how you should phrase your messaging. And then their interests, that's another really, really good one that comes in, because on the audience insights, which I'm going to show you in a minute, you can break down your audience by the demographic information that you know, and then it will tell you what other pages they like and what their interests are. And that's very powerful because then it can help you build up a bigger picture of who your target customers are and what interests them and what other things you could then be talking about on your pages that would help get them involved with you and communicating with you. It will tell you if they access via a mobile phone or via a desktop. It will even split it down by whether it's Android or iOS, which I don't think is particularly useful information. but there are differences between the apps. So perhaps for some of you, it would impact on what you would put out there. Perhaps if you are selling an app which is only in the Apple Store, then knowing which people access your page through an Apple device would be useful. And then the behavior, so what they do once they have seen your page. And this is where it's useful to install the pixel from Ads Manager onto a website if you have one, because then you can pick up information on what they clicked through to, which page they landed on, and what they then viewed once they were on your website. So that can be really useful information, particularly for ads targeting. So this is all stuff that you can find out in the background of Facebook, and it really does help to build up a really strong picture of who your customers are. This is a screenshot of Facebook's demographic information, the top line of demographic information. So it's quite interesting in that it will show you at the top, these are the people who like your page. And then the set of data here down at the bottom, these are the people who have seen stuff from your page. The difference between here is, as you can see, the people who like my page are concentrated in this 35 to 44 bracket, whereas the people who have actually seen it are concentrated in 25 to 44, and there's a pretty equal split. There's also slightly more men have seen content from my page than there are who follow it. So it's interesting to compare these two, because it shows you whether the content you're putting out there is A, reaching the people you wanted it to reach, and B, if it's resonating with the people it is reaching with. Because you could argue, well, why didn't all of those people then go and follow my page? Potentially because what I put out there didn't feel relevant to them, which is understandable. Most of my content is focused towards female business owners. But there's also the question of, why am I not appealing to people under the age of 35? So this gives you a lot of interesting questions to ask you, not only about who your current follower base is, but who you are wanting to target and whether you are achieving it. So once you know the information about your customers, you can then work out if you are managing to find them on the channels that you're on, and it helps inform your content strategy. So Audience Insights, this is the tool on Facebook which I mentioned, and if you want to go along with me on this walkthrough, that's absolutely fine. Just bring Audience Insights up on Facebook. I'll show you where to find it, and I'll do that walkthrough for you now. So I will switch over to my Facebook. Okay, so here we are. So here we are on Facebook. And on this little arrow here, when you drop down to that and go to Manage Ads, that's the quickest way to get through to Ads Manager. If you use Business Manager, you can obviously go through your business, but I'll take you through Ads Manager because it is the norm for most people. And then I will go into any old ad account. Then from the three lines up at the top here, when you click that, I now have the version which goes down this way. If you still have a box which comes out and there's all tools that you need to click on that in so that it will generate a big banner across the top of your screen. But otherwise, you're scrolling down and you're clicking on Audience Insights. If you still do have the big banner across the top, it will be around just slightly right of center of the top of your screen. So click on that and it opens it up like this. So the first thing it does is ask you if you are wanting to look at just those people connected to your page, or if you're looking at everyone on Facebook. Now, if you have a really big following, then by all means look at those who are connected to your page, and that will tell you if your page is currently full of the people that you're wanting it to be full of. But you do need to have a big following. If you've got even just a couple of thousand people, it won't necessarily be enough to give you very much information. And at this point, we're trying to work out who our customers are. So I would click on everyone on Facebook. And then as it prompts you, the first thing to do is to look at the location. Facebook's an American company, so it defaults to America. So we would just take that out Now you can look for the country as a whole and look at the United Kingdom, if it will please bring it up. Thank you. And that will show you the demographic information for the United Kingdom. If you are wanting to look very specifically at who is here, then you can put in Durham, and just be aware it's Durham, because we're in County Durham. And that shows you quite a different picture, actually. The grey in the background is the average across Facebook, for all of Facebook. The demographic in blue, that's the information relating to this particular country, this particular city rather. So as I said before, the northeast here, Durham particularly, are quite unusual in that they have a much higher percentage of people in the 18 to 24 bracket who are on Facebook as opposed to preferring Instagram, which is why quite like it for using for, and all of the ages and how many percentages people fall into within each age. Then we've got, as you scroll down, the relationship status. So far more people in the northeast declare themselves to be engaged, but there are fewer people who are married. We've got a higher percentage of people who have gone to university or who are postgrads, which is perhaps unsurprising as we're a university city. And then you can also see their job titles. So it tends to be the area that they're in rather than they've specifically put they're a librarian, for example. So out of the people in Durham, 11% of them are in the education and libraries. Again, not unusual, that's quite a big part of the city. And it's much higher than it would be normally. So average for Facebook users are only 8%. So this shows you where the main industries are that people are working in the northeast, which can be really useful when you're thinking about whether what you do appeals to them. And then you can click at the bottom here if you want to see more. Administration services is a big one in general. We are very slightly down compared with the average, very slightly. You'll often find that no matter where you look, administrative services is a huge one because it covers so much. So that gives you some of the top level information that you can then use to work out some stuff about your own potential audiences. You've then got these tabs here, page likes, location, and activity. So if we have a quick look, so out of everybody in Durham, we haven't split this down at all yet. Out of everybody in Durham, these are the categories, and these are the top pages within those categories for what people like. So if people in Durham are looking for an event planner, the likelihood is they have liked Bespoke as a page. If they're looking for, or if they've liked pages to do with kitchen and cooking, the likelihood is they've liked treats, pizza, Domino's, etc., etc. So it can be very, very useful seeing this. This is one of the most useful things I've ever found in terms of social media insights, because it tells you which other pages you should be looking at and you should be liking as your page. It tells you if you are in sport and recreation as a business, that Unique Health Clubs might be someone who could be useful to you because you already know that your target audience are likely to be following them. So if they're big enough that you could do adverts to an audience which looks like their audience, then that's a great way to do it. Or if you are selling sports equipment, then Unique Health Clubs might be someone that you wanted to be in touch with and that you wanted to build a relationship with on social media so that they might share some of your content. So this is really, really useful information when it comes to planning out how you are going to go about bringing all of those potential customers into your page, because you know that they are already following these specific pages. And there are way more categories. And then it also does it by page likes. So out of this category, that had the most likes, but out of no category, just looking at the pages themselves, Wharton Park has a really strong affinity with people who live in Durham, which was unsurprising. So an awful lot of people like the Wharton Park page. So if you have anything to do with outdoor sports or forest schooling, Wharton Park could be a really useful page to build a relationship with. Durham Disclosure is a very popular one. And again, as it goes down, you can see these are the pages which have got strong followings amongst people who state they live in Durham. Location, this tends to unsurprisingly say that. Top towns and cities, top countries would all be UK, and languages as well, because that could also be relevant to you depending on where you are, what you're marketing and where you're marketing. To think about what language is primarily spoken. And then how much they're on Facebook, how many pages they tend to like, how many posts they tend to like. These are all like average activity on social media, on Facebook. And this is the devices information. So see, only 3% of people in Durham access Facebook via their desktop only. A fair number of people access it via desktop and via mobile, but mobile only is a whopping 60%. And then you get some further breakdowns between iPad, Android, BlackBerry, and mobile web, so using their browser. So that's all really useful information. And then we can start to narrow it down. So I know, for example, that my current page posts are reaching people who are aged 25 to 45. So if I put that in, that then changes what I see here. So obviously it splits this a bit more because this is now what I'm focusing on, but it will tell me what the gender split is within Durham. And again, I know that I want to mainly appeal to women. So if I select women, obviously it knocks all of that off. And now this tells me in Durham, we're looking at quite a high percentage are in this 25 to 34 age bracket. So maybe I ought to be considering them to be quite an important target. It tells me more about my specific potential customers' relationship and education status, and it tells me where they work. And then go through to this one, which, as I said, I find most important. This tells me who they are following. So Mums in Durham events, that's a really strong community. It may well be one that I want to make sure I am active in, because then people get to know my name, and if they are a business owner, they get to know about me, and I get the chance to engage with them on a non-salesy way. So that is really useful information. And if we make it a bit bigger, Durham Bid, that comes up as being one of the top business sites that are followed on here. So again, very useful one for people working in Durham who need to know who they need to connect with. So yes, that's potentially really, really useful for me. This tells me where I need to be focusing my efforts, while this tells me information about whether they're likely to have children, whether they're likely to be in office type jobs, because that then helps me know when they are likely to be online. Someone has children, they are likely to have a certain set pattern to their day based around school run times. If they are in an office job, they are likely to have the standard 9 to 5, and there will be times of the day when they're on breaks and most likely to be on their phones. So it helps you build up an initial picture of what their daily routine could be like, which you can then use to plan when you're posting and where you're posting. And that's really useful information. It won't necessarily be perfect, and that's fine, because what you would do is you'd come up with your initial plan, you would post according to it, you'd post on the channel or channels that you think are the best ones for you. And I'd say always start with no more than 2. And then if you find that actually the times you thought they were active, you're not getting any engagement, then you reassess it and do another couple of weeks, another 3 weeks, posting at different times and compare your results. And that trial and error is how you go about working through it. And by the time you've been doing this for maybe 3 months, you'll have a really, really clear picture of what sort of routine your target customers have and whether your content is appealing to them. And if it is, which ones appeal the most. And that then forms your whole pen picture, your whole idea of who your target customers are and whether you are finding them on the channel that you believed you would find them on. So that is audience insights. Now, before I come out of this, I'm going to quickly check the Q&A in case there's anybody who wants me to show them anything further. Don't seem to be able to get the audience insights page. You should still be able to access Ads Manager, even if you haven't used ads. If you haven't used ads before, then I think you will find you should still get this. I'll come back to you on this one and perhaps take it offline to see why we can't get through to it. So we'll come back to that. If anyone else has any questions about what we've just been showing here, then do type it in the Q&A box. I can always come back to you later on that. We can come back to this without any problem. So I will now go back to the presentation, find my page. So we're on here. Okay, new share. So here we were. So that was audience insights. Find it incredibly useful, and it is really worth spending an hour just having a scroll through, testing out the different things that you can narrow stuff down by, and having a look at whether just building up a picture of your audience, really, of who your potential audience could be. And then once you've got some of that information, this is when social media stalking comes into place. These are the kind of things that you are trying to answer. You're trying to find your demographic information, and that obviously came from audience insights, though some of it you will have in your mind anyway. If you know your product and you know your business, you almost undoubtedly have a good sense of who you are trying to reach in terms of their age and their gender and where they live. That top level stuff is almost always correct from your gut instinct. But then the other four things, what they do all day, what their pain points, their motivations, and then their objections are, these are all things which come from digging a bit deeper into what makes your potential customers tick. So what they do all day, some of that will be answered from what we've just seen in audience insights. The things around what their education level is and where they live and what their job is and what their family status is. Those kind of bits of information will give you a sense of what they do all day. You don't need to worry about getting right down into the nitty-gritty, like they get up at 7 a.m. in order to take the dog for a half-hour walk so that they can be back to make sure their 15-year-old son gets up and off to school on time. You don't need to be that detailed at all. But if you've got the sense that they have children and therefore there is that routine to their day, or they are a standard family, so there will be, on the working day, there will be a usual structure where they are getting up, going to work, coming home, then that really can help you plan what you're doing. So that's the what do they do all day. You just want an overarching view of when they are likely to be online and when they are likely to be busy with something else. And the other three here, that really is quite key to your marketing messaging. So these are things that it's quite important to figure out about your customers. So their pain points. Their pain points are things which, the problems that they have in their lives. So these are the things that your product, your service should be solving for your customers. So for example, for me, the training that I deliver on social media, the pain point is for business owners who don't feel confident on social media, but don't have the budget to be able to completely outsource it to someone else. That's two pain points for people that I want to work with, because I can then come along and say, okay, well, for 1 month's outsourcing cost, I can teach you how to feel far more confident doing a social media. So that would be my messaging to answer that pain point. So if you know what problem you are solving for your customers and you can communicate that, then you will attract those customers because they can see how they can how you can help them. What motivates them, you then look at what it is that's important to them. So are they guided by how expensive it is, or are they guided by how much of an experience it is for them? Are they guided by where it is, the location of it, or the opening times of it? What is it that is going to make them buy for you? You've convinced them that what you can offer will solve their problem, but what are they going to, what is it? What words can you use that will really motivate them to go that extra mile and click the button? And it ties in very closely with what objections they might have to clicking that button. So you've said to them, well, I can solve this for you. And they go, yes, but, and you need to list those buts. So when you know your customers, when you know what their day looks like, when you know how much money they might have, when you know their age and their gender, you can start to build up this picture of, well, what problem am I solving for them? What's going to stop them from buying? And what's going to motivate them into buying? And these all give a really, really full rounded picture of who your customer is. And you use that then to inform what information you're putting out there. So this is a screenshot of how I then present this. This is a target user persona for a client of mine. So I take all the information that I find through insights and through knowledge of customers like that, and through what the customer has told me, the client has told me about the people that they are wishing to try and find. And if there is data in terms of Google Analytics, or if they have active social accounts and I can check out that data, then all of that goes into this mixing pot and I create this. So I put an image on it so that it gives you something to focus on. It gives you a sense of who the person is. And I write that demographic information about their work and their family and their location underneath it. I then choose 3 words here: creative, sociable, passionate, that describe their personality. And I talk about their goals. So these are the things that are important to them. These are things that if I can convince them my product will help them achieve these goals, then they're more likely to feel an affinity to me. The barriers to take up, that's their objections. These are the things that might stop them clicking buy. And bio is just a brief paragraph that outlines who they are. It sort of puts this into paragraph format. So who they are, what their issues are, what their pain points are, a brief overview of what they like doing, and then how they use social. That's the bio. It's just a bit of creative writing at the beginning. And then their motivations over here, I've put in order of what's important to them. So for this particular user persona, the reputation and the reviews that they could read. So the research that they could do on a business is one of the key motivating factors. So if you haven't enabled reviews on your Facebook page, or if you don't have your business listed on Google and reviews are on there, or you're not on TripAdvisor or wherever it's relevant for you to be, then when people start researching you, they might start to wonder if you can do everything that you say you can do. So reputation reviews, if that's important for your particular potential customer, then you need to think about making sure you've got those visible and that they're clearly independent. And then the ease of use, the professional development, they were also fairly important. Fear of missing out, not so much, and incentives and special offers, not so much. They will pay for something if they think it's worth it. And then favorite brands would come from that audience insight section on other things that these people like. And they, again, give you a sense of what these people are like socially and what their values are. So that's an example of how I draw up a customer persona. As I say, I've got a template that I will be able to give to even, and it can be shared out for you. It's a fillable PDF where you can fill in the information as you're finding it. It doesn't present it in this form, but it gives you a document that details everything to help you pull your ideas together. And there are templates like this free on the internet as well. Extensio, which is spelled Stensio, I think it is. They have a template which is quite similar to this that's free to download. So nearing the end here, this is a pictorial version of the decision tree that I go through in my mind. And I start here when I'm trying to choose where I should be, which channels I should focus on. Am I a business to business or a business to customer account? And if I'm business to business, I'd go over here and say, what age am I aiming at? And then go down the different branches. And some of them will take you straight to an answer. So if I'm looking at 55 plus, then without doubt, I need to be thinking Facebook. But if I'm looking at the teenage years, then I would need to be thinking Instagram. So some of those things give you an instant decision, because you're not going to find 13-year-olds or 15-year-olds on Facebook. Even in the Northeast, you're still going to want to be thinking Instagram. But if you're looking over 55s, you're not going to find them on Instagram. So that's an easy and quick choice for you. If you're looking at that mid-range where they tend to be on both, then you could ask yourself more questions, such as, are you quite a visual brand? And if you are, then Instagram will have some worth for you, but you still want to be thinking Facebook as well, because all of these people are heavily on Facebook. If you're not a visual brand, then Instagram isn't going to be so much use to you. You probably wouldn't build a big following. So concentrate on Facebook, but consider Instagram perhaps a few months down the line once your Facebook is confident. Whereas if you're business to business, it's not an immediate answer to that. So you go business to business, yes you are. Do you have a lot of content? And if you do, then it's a case of, are you trying to build your own reputation, or are you trying to build your business's reputation? So this is a key thing if you're a sole trader or not. If you are trying to build your own personal reputation, then you do want to have LinkedIn in there, but Twitter is important. If you are not trying to build your personal reputation, then just Twitter on its own would be fine. But if you don't have very much content, then LinkedIn is a good place to be, because it does move slower. You don't need to be posting as often. Twitter, you want to be posting up to 10 times a day. So you need to have a lot of your own content, and you need to have the time to look at what other people are sharing in order to retweet it. So that's quite time heavy if you don't have a lot of content. That would be very time heavy. So if you don't, then you want to be mainly on LinkedIn, but pop into Twitter and join Twitter chats and things like that to keep your account active. So that's a very simplistic version of the decision tree that I would potentially go through. And there are obviously a lot more questions that you can put into there. And once you've chosen which of those channels you might want to be on, you can then start to look more in depth at the other aspects of your customers in terms of what pages they like and things like that, which will help you tailor your messaging much more effectively. And it will help you tailor your posting schedule much more effectively. So let's now go back to the poll that we did in the first place, where there was a big focus on LinkedIn. And if you go back and you vote again now, it would be really interesting to see if any of you have changed your mind, or if you are still thinking the same places that you were before. So if you could vote again for which of the channels you think you would like to be on. LinkedIn still. Okay, still a lot of people thinking that LinkedIn is where they'd like to be. We do have a vote for Pinterest. Pinterest I didn't include on my decision tree at the end, actually. Pinterest would be one where I would say you'd want to be, whether it's a service or a product, probably product more, but for either, you could potentially be on Pinterest if you are wanting to appeal to women and get them to buy a product. Then Pinterest is a good one to start thinking about. So yeah, that's one that's still up and coming, and potentially in a year or two we will be talking about that one much more heavily. But for the time being, if you've only got the time to focus on one platform, then it's probably, there will be a few businesses where Pinterest is the one to focus on, but the majority of businesses will be focusing on the other main four. Okay, so a few more of you have gone over towards Facebook, and Instagram has 2 this time. And I think last time LinkedIn was up to about 10 by the time we finished the voting. We've got far fewer for LinkedIn this time. Be interesting to know if you want to pop in the chat box the reasons why you're thinking not so sure about LinkedIn anymore. That would be really good. Yes, Joy, absolutely. Instagram and Pinterest. Absolutely. If you make jewelry, that would be exactly where you would want to be. Those 2 would be spot on. Oh, thank you, Karen. Yes, that's the templates, Extensio. Excellent. It's a really good template. It's how I created the one that I do. It's based off that template. Do go and have a look at that. So far more of you are considering Instagram now than you were before. Interesting. Now, so that brings us to the end of the presentation, if I can get it to click. There we go. So that's the bulk of what I had to show you today. If there are any questions, that now is a great time to shout. If you want me to look through the audience insights with you any further, quite happy to do that. And I can bring up the PDF that I've been talking about if people want to see that too. I'd like to invite Stephen if he wants to come back on at this point, just to help with the facilitation of any questions.
Hey Rebecca, how are you doing?
Hi, thanks.
I think that the guys have kind of, I think you've kind of bottomed out most of the question, and I think has anybody else got anything that they'd like to ask Rebecca? Does anybody else need any kind of more clarification on anything that she's covered?
I did notice someone asked in the chat box about how you find out their goals. The goals one is quite often comes to me from the client, so they have a sense of who their customers are, and I find that I get a sense of what that client's goals would be once I know more about what their life is like. So once I know more about whether they've got a family, once I know more about what their jobs are like, and also considering who my client is. So one I'm working with at the moment is a ski hotel. So I know that the people who are going to come there are going to be people who enjoy skiing. They might come with a family because they do have links to a family ski school. And so we're going to be talking people who are outdoors, who like being healthy. And so these can then help to form a picture in my mind and give me a sense of what might be important to these people. So it's not so much thinking about what goals have these people set themselves that they want to achieve in 5 years, but perhaps what is important to them. So the health of their family is important to them. The ability to learn a musical skill might be something that is important to a customer. The ability to personalize something or to own things that make them feel joyful. These kind of things might be values. You could term it values if you prefer, the things that are important to them. I hope that helps a little bit.
Fabulous. I think we've got a question from Karen as well, Rebecca. Just ask any thoughts on number of daily posts for each platform?
Yeah, sure. So it is quite a bit to do with which platform you're on, and to do with what you find works. So the averages are, average optimal posting for Facebook would be once or twice a day, and Instagram it would be twice a day plus a story every day, and a story needs to have 3 different sections to it. Pinterest would be anything up to 30 pins a day, and that doesn't have to be your own new pins, that can be finding stuff from other people's boards and pinning it to yours. And Twitter would be around 10 tweets a day plus retweeting other people's content. LinkedIn need be on a personal page. You probably want to be trying to post daily. On a company page, maybe 4 times a week. So it can be quite intensive, but that's if you are in campaign mode and you're trying to substantially grow your following. If we're just talking about keeping a page active, then you could be just doing 3 or 4 posts a week on Facebook. That would keep it active enough to keep it in the algorithm. Twitter, you could probably drop down to about 6 tweets a day plus retweets. And Instagram, you don't want to be doing less than 9 posts a week, really. Instagram, you need to keep quite up to date. And Marco has put in the question and answer: will people get put off if I post the same content? Across the 2 platforms, no, not necessarily, and certainly not if you know that you've got different follower bases. What I generally try and do if I'm going to be posting the same content is that I don't post it at the same time. I put it in a different order, and I never do an automatic cross-posting, because it looks bad on Facebook if you've got a whole heap of hashtags in there. So I would post something on Instagram, and then perhaps a week and a half later, it might go on Facebook. I would also think about having slightly different copy that goes along with it, because long form copy can work fine on Instagram, but you often want something shorter and snappier and with the essence of what you're trying to say in those first 3 lines. So that's kind of how I do it, so that if someone like me comes along and has a look at your social media feeds, I won't go, oh, they just post the same things on both. But it would look different. There would be a different feel to it, because you have to remember you're going to be talking to different people on there, and as a result you don't want to be using the exact same language. One might want to be more informal, or you might want to have really beautiful images on your Instagram feed, but then the stuff that you put in your stories you find works really well on your Facebook post. So yes, that's what I would say with posting between Facebook and Instagram. Absolutely reuse your content, but try and tweak it between platforms.
I think one thing that often comes up as well when we're talking about social media generally, and we touched on this a little bit through the LinkedIn workshops as well, is using third-party software. Rebecca, what's your thoughts around that?
To schedule, you mean?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of SmarterQueue. It's my favorite one, particularly if you are using something like Twitter, where you can absolutely get away with sharing the same post more than once because it moves so fast. Although Twitter rules mean you do have to tweak it each time, but SmarterQueue has a tool which lets you upload a post to your scheduler, and then you can add in multiple images that they will tell you it will cycle through. So each post would go out with a different image, or you can put in 3 or 4 different variations of the text, so it's not an identical tweet. So I love that about SmarterQueue, because it automatically will recycle those tweets. If it is a paid tool though, if you were wanting something that was free and you just had a couple of platforms that you were working on, then Buffer is a fantastic option. It's really simple, really intuitive. It's got some good analytics, and it works very well from a mobile phone. So absolutely, Buffer is a great one. It's Smarter Q. I will put it in here. Smarter Q. I think it's .com. I'm a big fan of them. They're great. But otherwise, yeah, Buffer. I'd go for Buffer. That was what I used before I found Smarter Q. And using a scheduler is quite a good option, because it does mean you can preload at the beginning of the week. You can preload everything that's going to go out that week, and then all you need to focus on throughout the week is checking in and engaging with people who've commented, rather than feeling like you've got to be in there every single day, posting something every single day. You can be confident that that's going out, even if you don't get the time to pop in. And that can be really good. If you're using Facebook and Instagram, then of course there's the Creator Studio, which has free scheduling included in it. I've been using that quite a bit recently, and that's quite good. And Twitter will be bringing out something similar very soon. They've promised us scheduling.
Excellent. I think we've got a question from Peter as well for you, Rebecca, just saying, my customers are predominantly in the education sector. Would Twitter and Facebook work best?
Yes, probably. I would say they would be the best two to start with. A lot of it depends on who in the education sector you're targeting. If we're talking teachers, then absolutely you'll find most of them on Facebook and a fair number on Twitter. If you're talking more government departments and policy, then Twitter, 100% Twitter. If it's head teachers or academy bosses, then you may well find a lot of them on LinkedIn, in fact. But I would definitely start with Twitter and Facebook. And if you have a Google for tweet chats in the education sector, you will find that there'll be some throughout the week where you can join in with a conversation that's connected via a hashtag. You search for that hashtag and it brings up all the posts that are related to that. And then you can join in with that conversation and link directly in real time with people who could be your target customer.
Fantastic, thanks Rebecca. So we've just got a question from Petra just saying, another presenter's opinion is that it's better to post directly instead of using schedule tools, that Facebook, LinkedIn, etc. will penalise posts from scheduling tools. What's your opinion on that?
It's something that splits the sector. It does seem to be a little bit of an urban myth, but it does keep getting perpetuated. So time and time again, I see people testing it out. What seems to be the case is that when people post live, they automatically do their engagement again at the same time. So they post and they immediately see what else is on the channel and engage with it. And that brings people straight away to their own page. So they see better results, but it's not because they've posted live, it's because they've also engaged at the same time. So if you use a scheduler and you then never go and check your Facebook page or your Twitter page or whatever else you're posting on, then you won't see any uplift. But if you are using a scheduler, but you're also checking in on your accounts, checking notifications and engaging with other people, then you shouldn't see any penalization from using a scheduling tool. But if it worries you, then certainly Facebook and Instagram, their own creator studio, they certainly don't penalize that. Absolutely not. And LinkedIn I haven't noticed being penalized for scheduling content. There's a great account to follow on LinkedIn. John Espirian, he is one of the best experts when it comes to LinkedIn. And if you have a scroll through, he quite often tests out things like putting a link or not putting a link in a LinkedIn post, or using a scheduler or not using a scheduler. So he's a great one to follow to find out what the algorithm seems to be doing on LinkedIn.
And the algorithms are always changing as well, aren't they? So
they are, yeah.
Sometimes information that was relevant a year ago or 3 years ago or 6 months ago can now not necessarily be that relevant anymore.
Yeah,
I think absolutely right. I think the other tricky thing as well is that it's all about how much you're on the platform, isn't it, and how engaged you are on the platform. No matter what you post and what you do, if you're not that engaged on the platform, it's going to be problematic, isn't it?
It is, definitely, because the algorithm rewards people who are adding value. So if you're just putting posts out there but never doing anything else, then the algorithm will see you as someone who's a bit spammy, and so will downgrade you in their algorithm. Whereas if they see you having conversations and they see people having conversations with you, then they start to see you as someone who is valuable to have on the platform, and they will boost you, and they'll start recommending posts to people who don't currently follow you.
Fantastic. I think we've got a couple more questions come in as well for you, Rebecca. So we've got just Sue asking, she just started on Instagram. What are the best tips for growing an audience?
Hashtag strategy is first and foremost thing for Instagram. Find out what hashtags your sector are using, find out what hashtags your competitors are using, and the influential accounts. So you need to identify who else your target customers follow, and then go and have a scan through their posts on what hashtags they're using, and then create a few different blocks of between 10 and 30 hashtags, and vary between them. So just have them so that you can easily cut and paste them into a post, and they're how people discover you. More than 60% of traffic to an Instagram profile comes from having discovered it via a hashtag. And so that is very much the way to grow. And then you go and engage with other accounts. That's the second way. It's a two-pronged attack. You reach new people with a hashtag, and you go and engage on other people's posts to also help bring the influential accounts into you. That's the best way to go about it. Don't do follow, unfollow all the time, because that's not good. And if you use the same hashtags all the time, then you risk temporary bans. You need to mix it up.
Fantastic. Amanda's asking as well, what split would you aim for in terms of images, copy, video when posting on Facebook?
There isn't really any magic split, to be honest. And the algorithm doesn't prioritize one over any other anymore. I would say that video tends to get the most engagement, but often that engagement is just someone watches it for 3 seconds and then passes over. It's more about what you're putting out than what the balance is. So if your videos are really funny, or if they are very, very informative, then they will do really well. If your images are attention grabbing and they get people to stop scrolling down through their feed, then that will help boost your engagement level in Facebook's mind. Copy only posts don't tend to do amazingly well, but again, it depends on why you think people are following your page. If they are following you because they are just looking for information, then a copy only post could do fine. But on the whole, you want to have either an image or a video the majority of the time. And then it's about making sure that works hard for you.
Excellent. Thank you. And Peter's asked as well, why is it important to be upgraded by LinkedIn algorithm?
When I talk about being upgraded, I just mean that if everybody's on a level playing field, then everybody would be seen the same. But that's not how the algorithm works. They look at how active you are on a platform. And if you're not active and you're not engaging and you're putting posts out but nothing's happening, then they'll start to say, okay, this person isn't interesting other people, so we'll focus on putting these posts higher in people's feeds. So you just don't get seen as much. Whereas if you are engaging and you are interesting and people are commenting or they are sharing, then you start to rise up, and Instagram starts to say, this is someone who other people will find valuable, so we will put that higher up in the order of posts that people see.
Fabulous, thank you very much. Nariko just popped a question in as well there. Should I follow people who followed me on Instagram? I think obviously there she's looking at the ratio, isn't she? Is to follow and follow ratio. Yeah,
no, you don't need to. Only follow those people who are going to be useful to you. If you follow everybody, then your own feed becomes really cluttered, and it becomes hard to find the posts which are useful for you for building relationships. So it's if someone follows you, check out their account. If it looks like they could be a customer, and you think that following them back could help nurture that relationship, then by all means do that. But if you're someone who's, say you've got a shop and you could have a lot of people coming through your shop every time, you don't want to be following every single potential customer, because that would make your following insane on Instagram. So if you think about the big brands, or even people who are medium-sized brands, none of them follow everybody who follows them. They follow the accounts which are key for their sector, or they follow accounts with major bloggers that they might want to have a relationship with. So just follow back the people who are going to be useful to you.
Fantastic. It's really helpful. Has anybody else got any other questions? I think we might have exhausted everybody. So I don't know if did you have a PDF that you wanted to go through as well, Rebecca?
Yeah, I'll stop sharing and so I can find that. Remember which of my many millions of folders it's in. That one. Okay. Yeah, right. I'll just share this. So this is the template that I created for the online course that I run. So you would go through the various tools that we've talked about, audience insights and your own page insights, and just fill in on each box. You can type in it. So you just fill in the information that you find out about them. And then those 3 adjectives, those were the ones that appeared across the top of the final pen picture that I had, the creative, passionate, things like that. And then the values, and I've given examples here that might help prompt your mind about what sort of things are important to your potential customers. Then I've said 5 motivations. It doesn't have to be 5. If you think they are primarily motivated by just a couple of things, then just fill a couple in. But anything up to 5 can help to focus your mind on what you're trying to do. And other brands that they like. So that's what you would find from the like section of audience insights. And then I always suggest giving them a name and summing them up in a sentence, just because it makes them real to you. I quite often find that when I'm filling these in, that I can either relate it to somebody in a TV program or someone I know in real life, particularly if I'm talking to a baby brand client. There's always a mother that I know in real life who comes in my mind as being the ideal customer. So that can really help. And then this is the stuff which is less tangible, and quite often people find that they don't fill this in until they've been testing things out on their channels. So they've got all the initial information, and that gives them a vague outline of when people would be online and what they would be online for. And so you can start posting, see which times of day work, which times of day don't work, what kind of content works. And then as you learn, you can start to fill in these things about whether they're too busy in the morning to be on social, or they spend time during lunch scrolling through their feeds, or mid-afternoon while the baby naps, they're on their phones, or indeed whether it's in the middle of the night. And so you've got morning, lunchtime, afternoon, evening to fill in. The interests that they have, and again you can get that from audience insights. And then this is about you knowing your product and why you created your product, what problem you were looking to solve with your product. So you give 2 problems and explain how it solves them. And then based on that, and compared to the demographic information at the beginning of the presentation, you decide yes or no whether you're going to be on each channels, and an initial sense of when you would be posting, how many times a week, whether it's morning, afternoon, that kind of thing. And again, that might be something that comes with time. So I will be giving, I don't think there's a way I can upload it to the chat, unfortunately, but I think there's a Facebook group, isn't there? Or or it can be emailed out to people so they can fill this in.
Yeah, definitely. I think for us it'll probably be really helpful to put it into our Facebook group, Rebecca. I think that for the digital knowledge exchange guys, then obviously we can arrange for Audrey or Rory to send it out to those guys, no problem at all.
Great.
I think that's really useful. I think that's a great tool for people to use, isn't it? Fabulous.
Cool, no worries. Any more questions come in? Can't get the chat box up again.
I think that's. I think we've kind of covered it all. To be honest, okay. Rebecca, I think the guys have are not coming forward with anything else. I think we might have covered everything.
Okay, cool.
Fantastic. Brilliant. Is that everything from yourself?
Yes, I think so. That was everything to cover in the presentation. So unless anybody has any more questions about how they go about finding their customers, if there's something that I've left a gaping hole in your knowledge, then by all means do shout.
I'm sure that's not the case. Fabulous. A few of the guys are just saying thank you very much there. That's great. So just before we kind of wind down, everybody, just to let you know that although this kind of element of the webinar program with Digital Knowledge Exchange and Digital Drive is sort of coming towards the end, we are doing a season 2. So if you give us a week or two, we're in the current planning stages of getting quite a robust webinar offering again for you in season 2, probably very similar, you know, another 20 or so webinars coming to you on a variety of different topics. And so, you know, feel free to re-engage with us and participate in some of those. That'll be fabulous, and you'll get a lot of useful information, I think, out of that. So I think if that's everything from everybody, I'd like to say thank you very much, and thanks to Rebecca for coming along and presenting for us. Thank you.
Good.
And yeah, just to let you know, Sue, that yeah, the other webinars are available for the Digital Drive guys, and they'll be on our webinar. We're gradually kind of importing them to our website over time, so you'll be able to catch up on those if you've missed any, and then just rewatch any, you know, that you felt have been really useful for you. For the Digital Knowledge Exchange, that again, a similar sort of process, but they have a YouTube, so that they'll upload all of their videos onto there, so you'll be able to see them there. So yeah, Brian, absolutely concise, lots to try out, yeah, lots to think about, as there always is on the back of these sessions. A lot of work for you guys to do. Unfortunately, just put all this sort of stuff into practice. But thank you very much appreciated. I hope you've enjoyed the webinar today, and indeed the series that we've had so far. So thank you very much for participating. Brilliant, some really nice feedback from Peter there as well. Thank you very much, Peter.
There was one person who said they had difficulty finding the audience insights. If that remains the case, if they get in touch with you, can you put them in touch with me and I can try and help them one-to-one?
Absolutely, yeah, no problem at all. Yeah, if anybody needs any kind of additional help, then obviously you can go to Rebecca's website and things like that. I'm sure that she'd be happy to have a conversation with you. But if there's anybody from Digital Drive side, if they want to drop me a message or get in touch with the program, then obviously we can point you in the direction of some additional help and support. No problem at all. Thank you very much. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.